Hey everybody, this is Brian from Carving is Fun, and in this video let's talk about how to both sharpen your knives and keep them properly honed while you're carving. Now, knowing how to make and maintain a practical wood carving edge is a key skill to learn for both a safer and more enjoyable wood carving experience. Now, some people do go on about getting their knives hair whittling sharp or even scary sharp. But from my own experiences, this is not necessary. What we're going to be targeting here in this video is a well-honed and practical cutting edge for whittling and wood carving. So to start it off, we're going to be going over three different subjects in this video. One being the tools that you're going to need to have in order to grind down your edge and hone it down. Two, how to put a proper edge on your knife, which is the cutting edge right there. Make sure it's the right angle. And how to maintain that edge while you're carving, which is a very important thing to do. All right, to start off, you're going to basically need two different types of tools here. One is a basic stone to do more of the heavy grinding, and then a leather strop to hone down that edge to a nice razor fine cutting edge. Starting off with the stone, you don't need anything too terribly fancy with it. I personally like the ones with the double-sided stone on it, preferably the ones that have like a 400 to 600 grit stone on one side and maybe an 800 to 1000 grit stone on the other side. This just makes it easier for you to transition from a more coarse stone for more heavy grinding for reshaping the blade to a nicer, smoother stone to help refine that edge a little bit more. Then after that, you're going to be wanting to go to something to polish and hone that edge down to a very nice razor sharp edge. For this, you're going to want a leather strop with polishing compound on it. We're going to mainly be focusing on the green polishing compound, or if you're going to be using a flex cut variant, the flex cut yellow compound. Both are about the same thing. They'll do the same job. There are a lot of other different colors out there, really coarse to very fine. The only two that you're probably going to want to look into getting is the green and blue one. Those are both meant for steel, and primarily focusing on the green one because that's just going to be your general purpose all around one that you're going to want. The blue is a much finer one, and if you want to get a super fine edge, yeah, you can use that one, but green is going to be the one that you're going to be using most of the time anyways. Now, there's a lot of different options for getting a leather strop. Flex Cut's version, they come already, the leather is already glued to the wooden block. Beavercraft version, it comes in almost like a kit sometimes where you can just get the leather by itself and the green polishing compound that you have to glue onto your own wood block like this one. Sometimes they come, or you can also find the ones that have the leather already glued to the wood. If you want a full rundown on that, I have another video which I'll link up in the corner over there and at the end of the video as well, so you can go and review that. Now, if you just have your own piece of leather lying around, yeah, you can use that as well. Glue it right to the wood, apply the polishing compound to it, you'll be fine. Now, you don't need to have a leather strop or a stone if you don't want to have to afford them or anything like that, or if you have some other stuff as well. I have been using, me personally, my stone and 1000, 2000 grit sandpaper. This is 1000 grit wet dry automotive sandpaper I got at the automotive store. Works really well, just glued to a piece of wood. You'll be good right there. I also have this one for travel, which is a diamond plate sharpening tool right here. It's two different sides, one's a little bit coarser than the other. That way it's just like my stone where it's two different coarseness, so I can do a rough grind on one side and then smooth it out on the other. This one's more for travel. There are other ones out there that are much wider and longer. You can get them if you want. All right, now let's get into putting a proper edge on your knife. Most whittling and wood carving knives come with a pretty decent edge on them already, and will just need honing for either maintenance or just at the beginning. But you'll be able to see the difference on how these edges are. Usually the ones that are all set and ready to go will have a nice hone on the edge and it'll be a bit shiny. The ones that will need work will kind of almost look like they ground the cutting edge on cement. You're going to see lines, gouges. It'll be very rough if you run your finger up and down it. Those will need work. Quite a few knives that you'll run across, like this one's OCC Tools, Flex Cut, Beavercraft. Those cutting edges will come honed down properly and with the right edge grind and cutting edge angle on them. The right cutting edge angle you're going to be wanting to look for will be between 12 to 20 degrees. I'll be referencing from this side to this side with the point as the angle. You want it between the 12 to 20 degree range, because if it's too low than that, it's going to be a bit too flimsy and it might start rolling on you depending on the steel. If it's much wider than that, then you're going to start experiencing the knife being harder to push through and it won't slice the wood off as easily. Alright, let's go over some of the steps I take to profile and actually grind a good edge on the knife. Starting off, just so you have an idea what I will be doing, I'm going to be doing it to this knife right here, which is just a cheapo knife that I had lying around that is dull and needs some work on it. Now this is a cutting angle that you're going to see from the knife, like looking at it like this. So the point right there is going to be your cutting edge on the top. But what we're going to be doing is taking your knife edge, this is going to be your cutting edge angle, and then it's usually going to have a micro bevel on the tip of it right here. Sometimes if this tip is too, the angle is too wide, it can make it so it's a little bit harder to carve. But if we grind that edge back a little bit, you can see that I made it a little bit more of a narrower cutting edge angle on the bevel. It helps the blade slice through the wood a little bit easier, and you can get a little bit more of a razor edge to it. I did that to this Great Eastern Cutlery number 62 pocket carver, and it greatly improved the cutting potential of the blade. I think it was a major improvement on it. Now you don't want to do this with knives with really soft steel, because otherwise you're going to probably screw up the edge and it's just not going to hold that edge very well. But that's what we're targeting right here. In this case, we're taking the micro bevel and we're grinding it back a little bit to make the front part a little bit of a smaller cutting edge angle. Now if you end up having a blade where the edge is just really steep, now this is going to be exaggerated here, but if you have a knife with a cutting edge angle that's really steep, it's going to be harder to cut through it, and you can use your sharpening stone to reprofile the blade so that you take that cutting edge down a little bit. This usually requires a lot of extra work. Like if you're trying to remove all this extra material right here, so you have this much finer edge, that can be a lot of work, but sometimes it'll be way worth it depending on the tool itself. So that's just something to keep in mind. Alright, so we're gonna slightly reprofile this cheap pocket knife I had lying around. I already have, for the most part, the profile that I'm looking for on it, but it needs some extra work, so I won't be doing a whole bunch of grinding back the metal, but I'm going to start off on the 800 to 1000 grit side for this one. Now this is an oil stone, not a water stone, so just be slightly different than yours. If you get your own sharpening stone, make sure you read the preferred directions from the manufacturer. It's going to help you a lot and make life a little bit easier. Alright, so what we're going to be doing on here, we're going to be taking the knife and putting it at the cutting angle that we want. You don't have to be perfect. I do it by hand and kind of eyeball it. If you have those fancy, super accurate blade sharpening things that you can pick the right angle that you want, you can use those. I've been doing this by hand for 20 years, so it's what I've preferred to do. So just take the blade, hold it at the angle you want on the stone, and then drag it back and forth on it. You can go back and forth on the stones. You don't want to do that on the leather strops or even sandpaper, because then you'll start cutting through it. Now if you're sharpening a blade that has a curved edge to it, You're going to want to kind of seesaw it or rotate it out. You'll find your own rhythm to how you want to do it. I personally like to kind of seesaw it a little bit, and then make sure you switch sides and just do it to the other side. At this point, we're not worrying about making it super sharp. We're just worrying about getting the right angle on it. Sharpness will come later when we do the honing. So this, with the stone, the goal is to remove metal and reshape that edge. I like to use two hands on the knife. I don't like to just use one hand on it, because then I will find that my angle will start to vary. So I like to put my finger on the knife itself and help guide it. That way it's more control on the angle that I want. I want you to do it to both sides several times. Inspect the edge and make sure that it is indeed at the right angle you want. Make sure it's ground down right. You'll see if it's inconsistent, because it'll be kind of wavy if it's a different edge. I can tell right here I didn't get much of that ground down on that side, so I got to work on that side a little bit more. There you go, that's a little bit better. Just make sure you even it out. Now keep in mind, for most wood carving and whittling knives, you will not have to do this at all. They will be at the right angle that you're going to need. But if you're trying to reprofile your other knives to be more wood carving friendly, this is what you're going to want to do. Alright, that looks about right for right now. That'll be good for enough for the demonstration. Just wipe off my stone here. Now that that's done with, we're going to want to start working our way downwards grit level wise. So we're going to go basically from finer to finer grinding material. In this case, I'm going to work down to my sandpaper, and then I'm going to use my leather strops to hone down the edge. You can go from the stone to the leather strop. It's completely up to you. But for this one, we're just going to go to the sandpaper so I can demo it a little bit for you. This one is a wet-dry sandpaper. I can use it both wet and dry. I can also clean off any of the metal bits by just wiping water on it, which is quite useful. And they also typically last a little bit longer. So when you're sharpening the edge on sandpaper, you don't want to go back and forth like you did on the stone. Instead, you want to keep an eye on the cutting edge, and you're going to put that edge down and then push away. You don't want to cut that edge into the sandpaper, otherwise you're going to do one of these numbers right here and just cut off a chunk of it. So you're just going to be pushing it, and then again you're going to be kind of rotating, doing a little rocking motion on the blades if you're using a curved blade. If you're using a flat blade, you can just hold it flat and then just push, keep even pressure on it. Those are usually easier to sharpen. So for this, just keep it at the same angle that you're using on the stone and push the knife away from you. And make sure you are getting both sides. Again, at this point, I am not too terribly worried about making it super sharp. That will be done at the honing stage. And since this is 1000 grit sandpaper, it will polish that edge just a little bit, so you'll start seeing some shine start coming out of it. So this one, what we're going to do for this is alternate back and forth several times. Make sure you get a nice even grind back and forth. Alright, that should be good enough. Now we're going to the honing step. We're going to be using our leather strop with green polishing compound on it. And this is where we're going to be able to make that super nice razor sharp edge. And we're going to be doing this in the same motion as the sandpaper, because we don't want to cut into the leather, or you will be like taking off chunks of it like I did right there. It will damage the leather and also make inconsistent bumps on it. Since the leather strops are a bit more expensive to replace, it's ideal to take it slow. You don't need to like really push into the leather at all. Just place it down, hold it flat, and then just draw it across. Alright, so now that you you see how I do that? Now we gotta learn how to maintain those cutting edges on your knives while you're actually using them. Now, ideally, you're gonna wanna hone your edge with your leather strop every 20 to 30 minutes. If you're whittling something that's a little bit denser and harder to cut through, maybe drop it down to every 15 to 20 minutes. Now, when you're stropping your knife, you don't necessarily want to push down on it like I said earlier, and you also don't have to hold it completely flat. What I like to do is hold the knife flat to the leather strop by using like my pointer finger on it, just to make sure that I'm not rocking it back and forth. And I also like to tilt it up just a hair. You don't want to do a whole bunch of it like that, but literally just tilt it up a hair and then run that knife across. This is creating a small little bevel on that edge, and it helps keep that edge nice and sharp. If you do too much of an angle, you can start ruining that nice razor edge that you have on there. So you don't want to do that. And you do maybe 15 to 30 passes on one side, and then you flip it over and do the other side. You don't have to go do one pass and then do the other side immediately afterwards. You can do like 5 to 10 on one side, and then flip it over, do 5 to 10 on the other side. I've seen people where they kind of count it down, like they'll do 10 on one side, and then they'll do 10 on the other side, and then they start over again doing 9, 8, 7, all the way down to 1. And that helps maintain a very consistent and even cutting edge to it. Now the flat bladed knives are much easier to do. When you start getting into the curved blades on there, you're gonna have to kind of rotate the blade on the strop. Now what I like to do with the curved knife is I'll hold the edge down just like I did with the flat knife, raise it up a hair, but as I'm pulling it down, I will rotate that edge. So I'm making sure I am making contact with the strop on all sides, from the hilt all the way down to the tip. Now since the edge is making contact with a leather strop for a much shorter period of time compared to the flat knives right there, you might have to do a couple more passes. That's just going to be normal, that's going to be how it is. But the curved edges are not too terribly hard to do. Try and do this left-handed in the camera for you without bumping it, but you get the general idea. Now, after you're done sharpening and honing your blades, you're going to want to care for your blades as well. You're going to want to make sure you wipe off all the fingerprints, the oil from your fingers, any oil or water from your oil or water sharpening stones with a nice clean cloth. This prevents your carbon steel blades from rusting and corroding. It just helps make them last a lot longer. And now if you're putting them back in storage, there's an extra step you might want to look into doing, which is putting a little bit of 3-in-1 oil on there. This helps a lot for just maintaining the knife, that way it's not oxidizing or rusting accidentally. Like here in Florida, I'd want to coat them before I put them in storage because we have high humidity. So the humidity might damage the blade. Now if you found the video useful, please feel free to like and subscribe. It's a quick and easy way for me to get feedback and lets me know you enjoyed the videos. Alright, as always, thanks for watching and have yourself a great day.